I'm going to show you how to open Mazda RX8 tail lights. As you can see, I've already done some experimenting on trying to figure out the best way to open these, and I found a really good way not to open. I was trying to open them like a set of Genesis coupe lights where you cut along the back. That way we can plastic weld and seal everything from the back, and you don't have to do any sort of paint work like on the Honda Civic lights. See, if you don't do any paint work, you have to look at the cut line in there, and that doesn't look good. So I cut along a line on the back of the light and tried to pop it open. I think this light is pretty old and is actually brittle, which is why it snapped so easy. You can even tell where the plastic weld just let go. But it also wasn't looking as good as I wanted. This doesn't have an internal housing. It's just lens and then back housing. So you would have been able to see the cut from the front, and that's not ideal. So how we're gonna cut it is by cutting in between the lens and the back housing right along here. We will have to do the Honda Civic method where we glue the lens back on and then seal it back up with some silicone and then do paint work. But let's get started. I'm gonna show you what tools you need. The first thing that you're gonna need is obviously a set of taillights, preferably one that's not broken. This set is plastic welded, so they heat up the lens and the back housing and just kind of sandwich them together. That's how they seal it up. So unfortunately, this set will have to be cut. This is the tool that we like to use. It's called an ultrasonic cutter. You can buy them on Amazon. They are kind of pricey. These are about $400 or $500 on Amazon and eBay, but we have a cheaper option. We have used a Dremel for years. We prefer to use the diamond bit because it's the thinnest, and I like to have the extension on there because the base of it gets really hot when it spins, so you can actually hang on to this longer while you're doing your cutting. That whole setup is probably like 100 to 150 bucks. Plus, you can use a Dremel for many other things besides just cutting open lights. The ultrasonic cutter is really only for very, very small specific things, but it really does have a clean cut. Once you've cut open the lights, we like to use pocket screwdrivers. They're pretty thin, so they can actually get into the very small cut that we provide. If you need to, you can use some bigger screwdrivers, some bigger flatheads, but it's easier to break it with the big flathead screwdriver compared to the pocket screwdriver. With the pocket screwdriver, you can just get into exactly where you need, apply a little bit of pressure to pop it loose. After you've opened up the light, done all your modifications or whatever you're gonna do to them, it is time to reseal them. So what we use is shoe glue. We like to use silicone, specifically silicone 2. It doesn't shrink as bad as other products. We'll do like 5 or 6 good globs of the shoe glue. Let this cure up completely and then come back and silicone the lens all the way on. To hold the lens in place, I'm gonna use tape. If the tape isn't up for it, then we'll actually get some clamps out and use that to hold it down. I try not to use those because if you apply too much pressure, you can actually crack the lens, but that is an option as well. This is kind of a bonus one. We like to use foam tiles to set the lights on while we're cutting and messing with the light at all. That way we don't add any extra damage to it. We like this so much that I just did the entire top of the table and this entire bench with some foam so that I can set the light anywhere on here, but you can just pick up, you know, any of these like workout tiles, foam tiles. Now it's time to clean up the table and start cutting this light open. Okay, now that I have it cut, I'm gonna use my pocket screwdrivers and I'm going to pry the lens off. This is why it's helpful to have 2. You can have one in there to lift the lens, and then you can go down the rest of the lens with your second screwdriver. Okay, it's not wanting to let go right over here, so I'm just gonna take the cutter and trim it a little bit more. Okay, it wants to crack right through here. It's not yet, but I can tell that it really wants to. So we're gonna have to trim this a lot more. Okay, so all around here was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Up here is where you could potentially have issues. This is such a little tight corner that was kind of hard to get in there, and it really wanted to crack down like that. So you got to watch out for that. Then up here, unfortunately, I just had to go straight down along the whole fin in order to get it off. But doing that, after I did that, it actually popped right off. You can actually tell how gross this light was. All of the chrome is coming off. They had to drill holes in the light just to drain the water out. There's a lot of debris in here. Okay, I actually still have a ton of work to do to these lights, several more weeks of work, but I wanted to show you how to seal these back up, and I'm going to show you how we do it on a set of Civic. Just like these, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that video in right now. Okay, for this next step, you're gonna need shoe goo or goop and tape. Let's do this one first. So carefully take the lens off, set that over, and just get rid of that. So what I do is I peel this plastic back off of the inside of the lens, being really careful not to touch it. Actually take compressed air and blow all of the dust out of the inside of the lens, and then I set it on the light. Okay, your housing has nice clean edges. There's no dust on the inside of the lens, no dust on the inside of the housing. So I actually try to make sure that one, this fits. I do a little test fit, test mock-up first. Everything looks okay. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna set everything in place and use your tape. Okay, tape is on. So what I'm looking for whenever I do this is to match OEM fitment. So the main thing I'm focusing on here is this inside line, because if this isn't exactly like OEM, then it's going to look really weird sitting next to the other tail light, because these are a set. So whenever these are on the car, if these two lines are off, it's gonna mess up the whole light, this whole light, and the fitment is gonna be really bad. Now it's time to add your shoe goo or goop, and you're gonna put it right inside the crack, in between the housing and the lens. I like to do 3 or 4 spots on this one. 3 is gonna be plenty. On this big one, 4 is definitely gonna be recommended. Okay, you don't have to do this next thing if you don't want to. They're your lights, you do you, but I like to clean this up. That doesn't look professional at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, make it look completely flush so that it looks like it's supposed to be there. Pro tip, spray glass cleaner on your fingers whenever you go to wipe your silicone or your adhesive. It helps it not stick to your fingers. Yeah, that looks much better. Time to do the same to these. Okay, you're gonna wanna leave these sitting for at least 24 hours. I like to make sure that that adhesive is really cured before I mess with it. I don't wanna accidentally move the lens and make the alignment off. Okay, it is the next day. The adhesive is fully cured, so now we can actually put in the silicone to seal it up and make it watertight. This is the silicone I use. Just make sure that you get silicone 2. Silicone 1 shrinks after a little bit and silicone 2 does not. They sell it in multiple different colors. I always use the black one. It looks the cleanest. Before adding the silicone, I like to inspect the lens and make sure that there is no dust or debris inside, because we still have these cracks, so we can actually use our compressed air and clean it out before we seal it up. Okay, this is all sealed up. We do have to let this cure. I think cure time on this is just a couple of hours, so that's not too bad. But you're probably thinking that this still doesn't look too good. All of this edge right here, that looks horrible. I've had several people ask why I don't put paint on the inside, and I actually have. Putting paint on the inside actually still shows the cut. It's a lot lighter. The plastic shows up a lot lighter compared to the not cut part. So that's why I paint the outside, because it actually hides absolutely everything. All of this cut, all of the silicone. You can actually see right here, all of this is filled with silicone. So it should be solid black like this very, very thin edge here, but it's showing up white. I normally do a black border. I think this time I'm gonna do a silver border. People seem to like the all silver chrome look. So I think that's what I'm gonna do this time. I'm gonna try a metallic silver and see how the border looks on this. All taped off, ready for paint. All right, that turned out great. I am really glad I went with metallic silver on this set. It complements the chrome perfectly. Of course, I still have one more to do because of the lens that I broke. That one's not here yet. I'm just waiting for the Specti lights to come in so I can cut that open, get that lens on, painted, and then I can ship this set out. The only other step that we have is to replace the halogen bulbs with red LED bulbs. I do recommend leaving the turn signal bulb as the amber halogen because the LED one is going to make it hyper flash. If you don't mind the hyper flash, you can leave it. Or if you really need the LED turn signal and don't want hyper flash, you can use load resistors. I personally don't like using load resistors. I don't want to tap into the OEM wire harness. So I always just leave the regular halogen orange bulb in there. But that bulb right there is going to get replaced for sure. And I think this one will too. I can't remember which ones light up as the brake lights and which ones don't. But after that, they'll be ready to ship.